All right, I got Dr. Ben Thompson on the show today. He is a licensed audiologist and the founder of Treble Health, which is a nationwide private practice specializing in tinnitus and hearing loss. Dr. Ben, welcome to the show, brother.
Thanks, Joel. Glad to be here.
Yeah, excited to dive into things tinnitus with you. This is one of those, symptoms or diseases or imbalances in the body that when someone gets it's kind of like a life sentence for the most part, from what I understand. And people don't get rid of it. So, but it sounds like you have found a way to help folks deal with it and like really reverse it. Is that right?
That's absolutely right. And tinnitus, which doctors like me typically pronounce tinnitus, as well as hearing loss, these are invisible conditions. We don't think about them that much. We don't turn our ears off, like closing our eyes, or closing our mouth. But our hearing system is just operating 24/7 to work for us every day. People have AirPods, headphones in their ears. It's the world is becoming noisier in some ways. So I think it is an important subject for everyone to think about.
Yeah. How before we start jumping into the details of tinnitus, how did you become so enthralled with it to the point where now it's like you've actually spearheaded a company to actually deal with this chronic illness?
Yeah, my journey was that wanted to become a hearing loss doctor, as I thought it was a cool blend of helping people and being a sort of sound specialist because I really liked music, playing music, being around live music. So then I got into the specialty and I realized that there was a certain niche or a certain group of patients that I was the best fit, and I really enjoyed working with them. And that were these patients who had bothersome tinnitus or tinnitus, the ringing in their ears. Sometimes it's ringing or hissing or buzzing. And this is a condition that most doctors out there don't know what to do and are saying things like, hey, there's not much you can do. Just try to ignore it. But in fact, this is a serious problem. It can turn people's lives upside down. It can be one of the worst health crises that someone with this condition has ever faced. So I saw the benefit, through my mentors and early on in my career, I saw that there was an opportunity to really help people and take this very bad health problem into a mild, manageable condition. And that is life changing. So that was my initial why I liked it.
Yeah, very cool. Is tinnitus, is it actually in the ears? This is where obviously people feel it, but is tinnitus in the ears or it is in the brain?
Great question. So we perceive it from the brain, but it is often related to the ears. A majority of tinnitus cases are related to a change in the hearing organ, the small hearing organ called the cochlea. That's behind the eardrum and behind these three smallest bones in the ear, which are the three smallest bones in the human body. Behind there's this cochlea, the hearing organ, and changes to that system can create a phantom sound perception of tinnitus in the auditory brain. However, there are some types of tinnitus that can happen without a hearing loss. So, yes, ear, and yes, brain.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, in some respects, right, the brain is like the master switch for everything, right? So it's regulating the nervous system. And I know that's something that you work with specifically in helping reverse this, which I can't wait to talk about. But so I guess there's always going to be like a brain gut connection, a brain ear connection. It's always going to be something, right? So I guess it makes sense. We'll talk about what are the root causes though for someone with tinnitus, because here you are again, a typical Western doctor, or someone goes to them and they say, hey, you got to live with it. Sorry, buddy, nothing we can do. And I know for a lot of people, this is a major problem. I mean, they can't sleep. It's just blaring in their ears. What are the root causes of tinnitus?
Yeah, the root causes of tinnitus, uh, about 80% of cases fall into one of these three groups. One is hearing loss, the second is stress or related to the nervous system, and the third is somatosensory, somatic conditions, typically related to the jaw or the neck. So if someone has this condition, or if you know someone who says, yeah, I can't sleep at night, or I'm pretty anxious these days because I have this health problem, doctors didn't know what to do. We first want to understand, why is this there? What is the cause? As I'm sure you've realized, doctors who can get to the root cause of the condition have a better effectiveness rate of solving it. So that's exactly what we do with tinnitus and helping patients. As you've spoken to other health professionals, I'm wondering, what parallel does this have to gut problems or other kinds of kind of obscure, unique health conditions? What have you found speaking with people?
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I have learned from other practitioners is that tinnitus can be a result of neurotoxins or heavy metals and bypassing that blood brain barrier and entering the brain. So I do know some practitioners who have been successful in reversing it using, I mean, I don't, and it's completely different than kind of what you're doing, but really pulling out those neurotoxins that are in the back of that ear canal, from my understanding.
Hmm. Yeah, certain. Well, it's a similar pathway to medications, where sometimes medications can create tinnitus, whether neurologically or through the blood in the ear. And anything that's like systemically in your body that can create changes to the hearing or even changes to the central nervous system, which could trigger this tinnitus sound. So yeah, medication changes or neurotoxins could certainly be a factor in someone's tinnitus from a holistic perspective.
Yeah. So someone gets diagnosed with this. In your opinion, Dr. Ben, what's the first thing people should be doing?
If someone notices that they hear ringing or hissing, um, I want to say first that a majority of people hear occasionally this 10 to 30-second high pitch ringing in one ear. And that's not an alarm. That's not a signal where you need to see a doctor, in my opinion. However, if you have a ringing sound that's lasting, days or weeks, maybe it started suddenly, maybe you're not sure why it's there, maybe there was a loud noise event that caused it. The first thing to do would be go in to see an ear, nose, and throat doctor, get a hearing test. That's typically a safe bet that rules out any physical causes. So the low hanging fruit in ear problems would be, hey, is this an ear infection? Is this something with the eardrum? Is this something that I can take a medication or maybe get a procedure done to fix it quickly? We want to rule that out first before we look at therapies or treatments. As an audiologist, I would come in with a therapy or a treatment plan that can help someone over a period of time reduce the condition as much as possible.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, get more data is what you're saying essentially. Let's before we actually jump in and start and start doing things. But if someone is diagnosed with tinnitus,
Yes.
then what's kind of the go-to if someone comes to see you? Because what you're doing, like even you said, there's three big ways we have to look at this. And so you're looking at it from all those angles. And then if you find that yes, this is where it's coming from, how does someone start to tackle it? Like what does that look like if they were to work with you?
Yeah, Joel. So typically the two strategies that can help our patients the fastest would include sound therapy on one side, and on the other side, a more cognitive therapy approach. And why does that happen? Well,
Yeah.
tinnitus is regulated by the central nervous system, particularly an area of our brain called the limbic system, which regulates which stimulus, which sounds in our case are important and which sounds are just not important for me to pay attention to. Um, Through managing tinnitus and treating it, we want to at a subconscious brain level bring tinnitus from I need to pay attention to this and I need to make this louder so Ben can hear it, to eventually this is such a background perception, just like the sound of my breathing, which is always there, but I never pay attention to it. So basically, my brain has learned that that sound is not important. Or the perception of clothes on my skin, where the brain has learned to habituate that. Oh, Ben doesn't need to feel his shirt on his skin, or glasses on my nose. This is essentially a way that the brain can help us over time only pay attention to the stimulus or the things that are actually important. Tinnitus is incorrectly categorized by the brain as being something that's dangerous, threatening, you know, and often it's unknown because there's doctors who say, I don't know what you can do. So all these things, they trigger the fight or flight response, causing stress,
Hmm.
anxiety. That makes the tinnitus louder, which can create insomnia. The patient can't sleep. Their nervous system is functioning, at a deficit. So that's the dangerous, vicious circle and cycle that we want to be aware of and get out of. So for most people, that would mean starting with sound therapy and some basic techniques regarding anxiety, stress, and sleep for tinnitus.
Wow. Okay, talk about sound therapy. I love this. I love this idea. I know a lot of people use different sound baths, sound frequencies, different hertz for different organs. So yeah, talk to me binaural beats, in a very simplistic way. So talk to me about sound therapy and how are you doing it? Like, what are the results?
Yeah, great question. So there's two main devices that people would use to administer or hear sound therapy. One is through a sound machine or a speaker. That could be your phone. That could be a specific sound machine in your home. And then a more professional approach would be devices like this that go up and behind the ears. They look similar to hearing aids for those who are on video here. They look similar to hearing aids. They sit up and behind the ear and they play certain sounds to the patient. So, what the person would experience is a low level white noise type sound, most commonly, or other sounds that we could set up for the patient. That sound would be at a level that's softer than the patient's tinnitus. So, let's imagine someone has a 7 out of 10. It's a loud, constant, ringing sound in their head, and we're putting in this soft white noise at a level in their ears for most hours of the day. This is using a protocol called tinnitus retraining therapy. It was created about 30 years ago by one of my mentors, Dr. Jastreboff, who's probably the most prominent researcher in the world of tinnitus and the history of tinnitus treatment. So essentially what he found, because he was a neuroscientist, is that when we administer a constant low level sound through a conditioning, the association of the ringing sound with this constant sound, the brain recognizes, oh, this constant white noise is not a threat. It's not important. It's always there. It's not causing me any danger or harm. So the brain pairs the tinnitus sound with that white noise. And then with enough repetition and time, the brain learns to filter out or reduce the tinnitus sound so that by the end of the treatment, the patient does not need the white noise. And if they started at 7 out of 10 intensity, they would say, oh, now I'm at about a 2, maybe a 3 out of 10, and my life feels like it's back to normal.
Wow. Okay, that's incredible. I wanted to ask you because when we think of tinnitus too, I'm sure you see this a lot. There's a lot of military veterans that I've spoken to that get tinnitus. And obviously they're around a lot of artillery and a lot of this thing. Now, what do you think that is? Because I know if you shoot a gun, right, there's this phenomenon called auditory exclusion where the ears actually muffle and you actually don't hear anything when that gun goes off, believe it or not. But if you're in the military, that might happen a lot. You might have a lot of times where you hear that. So, is that the brain, in your opinion, or what we know from research? I don't know. Is that the brain's way of trying to protect you? But when you get out of the military, it's still trying to protect you because it's in this neurofeedback loop where it's trying to protect you. So, it desensitizes certain things, and the end result is tinnitus. Is that fair to say? I don't know.
Yeah, so if someone is around a loud noise, military, civilian, if someone's just around a loud explosion, firework, speaker malfunctions at a concert, um, gunfire, things like that, it's a loud, sudden noise. So there's small muscles behind the eardrum called the tensor tympani, and we think it's through evolution. They're designed to protect our hearing when there's a loud sound. So when a loud sound happens, uh, those small, very small muscles behind the eardrum, they clench. And if you've played a hand drum before, if someone's clenching or putting pressure on that, it's not going to let that much vibration through. So when there's tension on the eardrum, not as much sound goes through. Therefore, this is like a protective mechanism of our ears to protect our ears against very loud sounds. But it doesn't do that great of a job. It just helps a little bit. Um, Evolution couldn't have thought of like bombs and guns and rock, AC/DC rock concerts. But for someone who experiences loud noise exposure, it's very common right after the event or after the concert, if it's like a multi-hour exposure, it's very common to hear ringing in the ears. And
Mhm.
there's a phenomenon called temporary threshold shift, where these small microscopic cells in the hearing system, they temporarily lose their function. So someone, if they came into a clinic, we measured their hearing, they would have a diagnosable hearing loss we would see objectively your hearing isn't, you've lost some of your hearing, but then because it's only a temporary shift, that hearing can return. So those are the factors that play as to why someone, might experience those auditory changes in response to loud sounds.
Yeah, and then the fascinating thing though, what you're talking about is that the brain can enter this neurofeedback loop, right? Where and I've seen this even physically, where it's like this phantom pain. Like the injury happened already, the trauma was there, but the brain has such an imprint of that trauma that it thinks it's there, so it keeps sending the pain signals. As an example, it almost sounds like it's the same thing with the ears, but and you're reversing it using the sound therapy to almost like reverse desensitize it. Oh, that's kind of the way that I'm hearing you explain it in a sense, using the sound therapy. It's really cool.
Yeah, it's definitely a form of neuroplasticity. There's also parallel for tinnitus with phantom limb, where a military veteran might not have an arm, but they feel pain in their hand. Similarly, someone doesn't have the ability to hear soft, high pitched sounds, but their brain creates a high pitched ringing. So there's definitely overlap. And yeah, what we know is that the nervous system is very powerful. We should not underestimate it. So neuroplasticity treatment based neuroplasticity based treatment programs can work very well for these kinds of conditions.
Yeah. Okay, Ben, talk about the second approach, this more cognitive approach. How does that work, and why would that be different?
Yeah, this one's very fascinating. And for most people, when they immediately hear this, they think, oh, that would never work. But it really does. And it shows us the power of our brain and our psychology on our body and our nervous system. So essentially, research has supported very strongly that cognitive behavioral therapy for tinnitus can work very well. And what that typically means is that there are certain tools and techniques someone can put into practice to stop the negative thinking patterns or the automatic negative responses that their brain has towards this situation. The situation starts with just tinnitus ringing in the ears, but then it's also stress related to it, anxiety. They're stuck in the fight or flight response. They can't sleep well. There's a lot of psychological layers to this. So, an example of this, instead of a patient thinking or saying out loud, oh, this tinnitus is killing me, if they switch that thought to something more neutral, which is, this tinnitus is very loud right now, but I'm hanging on and I'm going to keep moving forward. We can see that as a little different, not entirely different, but subtle changes like that, again, through the conditioning of the relationship between our psychology system, our nervous system, and also the tinnitus in the brain starts to be less reactive and more accepting of it at a neurological level. And what did we learn earlier? That over time, the tinnitus sound can be rewired and slowly reduce in intensity. So these types of methods help facilitate that.
Yeah, that's incredible. Have you noticed in your research and just clinically that most people with tinnitus struggle with anxiety and depression too? Is that kind of going hand in hand? Has that been something that you guys seen?
I interviewed a psychologist who worked exclusively with tinnitus patients, a friend of mine, and she shared that there is like an amazing personality of someone with tinnitus where um, it might be the kind of person where when something's wrong, they need to fix it. They can't just say, "Oh, something's wrong. I'm just going to let it be. Yeah, I'm just going to wait it out." They are the type of person that no, if something's wrong, we need to fix it or solve it. Right now, we can't just let it be. So on the front end, that's a factor, but once the tinnitus is there, it often does cause anxiety, stress, and insomnia for patients, whether or not they had it before.
Yeah. So doing that cognitive behavioral therapy, that seems to be what gets them out of that emotional spiral. Is that right? That you guys have seen.
That
And
is
then
that is one of the most effective tools, and I would pair that with sound therapy that we talked about.
yep.
I would also bring in for some people guided breathing techniques. which is essentially, mindfulness, guided breathing, maybe meditation, those types of things settle the mind and settle the nervous system as well. Where all these things are really just putting the brain and the body in the best place so that it can reduce the tinnitus itself. Because as you've probably learned here, all these methods so far, sound, cognitive strategies, guided breathing, these are not medications. These are not like invasive medical devices. These are really just natural things that we're setting up the environment for the brain and the nervous system to get better over time and create an environment where tinnitus can heal. So yeah, it's not like everything we're doing is a natural treatment, but in many ways it is.
I would say so. I mean, I know you've seen people go from suicidal despair to peace. What do you think is then, if you could share with the listeners, like, what's the most powerful testimonial or success story? Is there one that just sticks out in your mind that you always think about?
Yeah. So there's a few that I want to touch on, and one is related to tinnitus, ringing in the ears. Another one's related to like sound sensitivity. So there was a patient I had, and her name is Loretta, and I started working with her, and she had tinnitus that was bothering her and sound sensitivity that was really bothering her. The sound of her air conditioner in her house was too loud. She had to like wear earplugs if she was close to it, and the sound of the tinnitus was really bothersome to her. So she couldn't go to the grocery store because it was too loud, and the tinnitus was bothering her, and she struggled with sleep and anxiety and stress and all this. And we went through the treatment, and a year after she started, we're meeting for a follow-up appointment, and she casually mentions, yeah, things are okay. I went on the back of my husband's motorcycle. That was fine. And I was like, you went on the back of a motorcycle? She was like, yeah. I was like, did you wear earplugs? She was like, no, I didn't really need them. I was like, that's it. Like, you're cured from the sound sensitivity. She was like, huh, I guess you're right. Like, I guess I am so much better.
So incredible, man. It's so funny how we when you start getting good, you just forget to be, forget the gratitude you're in. You actually forget how bad it used to be, because now the good has become normalized, which is positive, but it's just funny.
And it's such a gradual process. Like, one of the things I wish I could snap my fingers and change is taking this treatment period where for most of our patients who come in with moderate or severe levels of tinnitus, the treatment for them is typically taking between 6 and 12 months, sometimes longer. I'd like that to be 2 to 3 months, but I just can't make it happen. So it is a long process for some patients, but that's similar to other conditions too. We know that certain systems in the body take time to heal.
Yeah, you didn't get her overnight, right? And that's probably part of the mindset. I think peace, especially when it comes to healing. Healing, I think, is such a mindset thing. But when you think about just the nervous system and what you're doing for somebody, if they for an entire 6 months or an entire year started, relating to the way they relate to the world and their feelings better, they start regulating their nervous system. They start doing breath work. Like, not only are you reversing the tinnitus, that's great, but you're actually creating a new identity. You're creating a new human being. And like, that change, I think, is even more powerful.
I agree with you. We have some patients who there's one particular patient who lives in the Bay Area where we have a clinic. Telehealth has a few clinics now as well, which is exciting. So he lives in close to San Francisco, and he went through our program and was in a really bad place, got significantly better, still deals with it, but essentially has his life back to normal. And he says at the end of it, he says, you know, I'm really grateful that I went through this process because I think I'm a better human now. I'm I'm less stressed. I have more care and attention to my health. And I know it sounds crazy, but now I'm taking better care of my sleep. My stress is lower. I think I'm happier, but I have some tinnitus still.
Yeah, really cool. If someone's had tinnitus for even 10 plus years, because you talk about neuroplasticity, could these people still retrain their brain and still get this dissipated, or is there like a point of no return?
They could. There is no point of no return. However, as time kind of solidifies the neural pathways in for the individual. The longer someone's had bothersome tinnitus, the harder or more time it will take for us to have great results with the treatment.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay. And then with this type of treatment, if someone's working with you for 6 months to a year, everybody always asks me, Joel, is this covered by insurance? And I'm like, no, of course not. If it works, it's probably not covered by insurance. But Dr. Ben, is it covered by insurance? I should just ask.
It can be. It can be. So for some insurances, yes, and I'd recommend someone reach out to my team or a similar specialist in your local area or my telehealth team. We can help you determine that. Sometimes yes, oftentimes no, but that's an important question.
Yeah.
As part of it's probably one of five key factors that you should know about as you're considering what your options are.
Yeah. And you just brought something up. I wanted to ask you, do people, if they don't live in San Francisco, if they're not near your clinic, what happens then? Can you work with people remotely all over the world? Like, how does this work?
Yeah, I had a fascinating journey that 5.5 years ago, I started a YouTube channel where my goal was make videos, help people with tinnitus. And that took off and started growing, consistently bit by bit. And in the last 4 years, we've offered telehealth services. So we've seen over 2,000 patients through a comprehensive treatment via telehealth. The technology works really well. These devices I showed on the screen, these medical devices on the ears, they can be adjusted and programmed remotely, which is really incredible. So
Wow.
the patient comes to us with a hearing test, and then we mail the technology to the patient's house, and then we're connecting, having it programmed on their ears just like we were in a clinic. So we've done that and proved that that is an effective treatment. We have data to support that works really well. And it, in 2025 and beyond, we are opening physical locations as well. So at the time of making this video, we have San Francisco, California, Miami, Florida, and Charlotte, North Carolina. So again, we know that tinnitus is a serious problem. Telehealth works, but there's advantages for the patients to have physical brick and mortar locations. So yeah, we're really excited about it, and it's a fun chapter as a practice owner, as a business owner as well.
Yeah, that's very cool. What I want to start wrapping things up, but just any exciting projects that you're working on that you can tell us about.
Yeah,
Any other one?
the exciting projects that we're working on are just focusing on what does someone with tinnitus need. Um, well, they need a combination of a few things. They need education and information. So that's our YouTube channel. And we're also launching an app that has coursework that is very structured that the patient can go through. Some of these patients, they need like technology, like devices. So sound therapy devices, perhaps other kinds of devices called bimodal stimulation, perhaps hearing aids, depending on the individual's case. So, I'd recommend an individual have a consultation with a doctor who specializes in tinnitus. We can help you guys, and then they'll be able to get a personalized solution. But for those people that need those types of devices, we offer those through the telehealth practice as well as the in-person clinics. And then what we found is that a lot of people need that cognitive behavioral therapy component, that coaching component, and that's what we provide. So all of our audiologists on our team specialize in tinnitus, and we work with the patient for typically 10 appointments within a 6-month period. We find that gets the best results. So, amongst all those things, Joel, that certainly keeps me busy, and that's what we're working on.
Yeah, that's amazing, brother. It's exciting to see how you started, just like you said, 5 years ago with the YouTube channel. Didn't even know what was going to happen, and now you were changing lives then, but I mean, it's neat to see how you can really scale and reach now people globally, which I'm sure you didn't even conceive 5 years ago. You were just like, oh, just throw some videos up, hopefully I can help some people. But now you're doing it.
Sometimes life is like that. You
Yeah,
follow your passion, and it's scary, or you start small and keep going, and you look back and you realize, wow, this is a whole different thing than when I started. But
yeah,
hopefully for the better. And I think that's a lesson or a message for anyone that follow what excites you, and it will be hard and it will be scary at times, but tap into what is it that I really want to do with my life. That's kind of what led me here.
Yeah. Talk before we kind of wrap things up and we kind of finish up here. Anything I didn't ask you that you wish I had? I know we covered a lot of ground, but just anything that, I didn't cover with you.
Yeah, there's a few things. One is that one is a research study. So what I found working with a lot of adults, typically our patients are between 50 and 70 years old. So definitely a lot of that population. Also my parents are in that population. So just kind of familiar with the mindset of those individuals. And the thing that motivates them the most, I found, is to prevent dementia, like to
Mm.
slow cognitive decline or stop it. Um, that can motivate people to, get off their chair, or, whether it's exercise, socializing, health treatments, going to the doctor, whatever. That is a motivating factor, and for good reason. In 2023, there was a study called the Achieve study. I just wanted to talk about it for a few minutes because I think
Yeah,
for anyone
please.
for
Please
anyone
do.
for
Yeah.
anyone listening who has family who is 60 or older, or someone who's listening is in that age range. Um, there were essentially 977 adults who were aged between 70 and 84, who had untreated mild to moderate hearing loss. So they had hearing loss, but they were not wearing hearing aids essentially. Um, what the research did was they looked at, would hearing aids actually slow down the rate of cognitive decline for the group? So if someone has a hearing loss, would hearing better through treatment show up in their cognitive brain scans and their cognitive testing, essentially? And so over 3 years, they measured cognitive performance with a standardized test. And for individuals who were at risk for dementia, whether it was lifestyle or genetics, family history, for that group, treating hearing loss by using hearing aids um, slowed down cognitive decline by 48% compared with controls. And it was the first large scale randomized control trial showing that properly treating hearing loss can substantially slow cognitive decline, by nearly half in at risk older adults. And that's massive because in 2020, the researchers out of the Lancet Commission found that hearing loss was one of the key risk factors that people can actually change or influence to stop or slow dementia. So this research is very clear now. It's been validated by these large studies, and essentially, if someone has a hearing loss and they also value their cognitive health, they should, it's a strong recommendation, use hearing aids to hear better.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. That's huge. I wasn't aware of that. I remember that study coming out, but I wasn't aware of the hearing component. So wow.
Yeah.
Massive.
Yeah. So what that means for people is, okay, maybe get a hearing test, maybe consider that. And I think the why is interesting. So the best link that researchers theorize is that hearing loss creates social isolation. So I'm going to stay at home. I'm not hearing people at the dinner table, but I'm kind of pretending like I am. I'm not going to go to the restaurant with my friends anymore. It's too noisy. I can't hear people. And research is very clear that social isolation does lead to dementia. So probably that's the biggest overlap of how this actually, how it all works. But yeah, super important for everyone here to know as they age, because currently there is no cure for chronic hearing loss or age-related hearing loss. So yeah, we should all be aware of it and protect our hearing now with earplugs or earmuffs if we are around loud sounds.
Yeah, made perfect sense. I mean, after you said it immediately, I just went back to what we were talking about earlier about the anxiety and depression. And so that, like you said, with isolation, depression, we saw that during the pandemic, but they talk about that all the time in longevity circles. The people that live the longest have a big social community or network, right? It's not about their diet and nutrition, all those are important. It's about connection, community, love, right? And so if you're missing out on that due to your hearing, like you said, so powerful. Wow, I never made that connection until we spoke today. So yeah, thank you. That what a gift, brother.
Welcome.
Um, man, okay, great stuff, Ben Thompson. Where can people find you? Where can they connect with you? Where can they learn more about you? I know you mentioned YouTube, but are you anywhere else? Are you on Instagram? Drop your website as well, and just like let people know where they can connect and just learn more about all the good stuff that you and your team are up to.
Absolutely, yeah. So our practice, Treble Health, we have the telehealth and the physical locations across the country. We do tinnitus treatment as well as hearing loss treatment. Um, and then if you wanted to, watch videos or learn more about tinnitus or hearing, I have a YouTube channel with over 150,000 subscribers called Treble Health. So we're out there, and yeah, reach out to us. We're here to help. So yeah, Joel, I appreciate the opportunity to come and love what you're doing. So keep it up.
Yeah, Dr. Ben Thompson, Trouble Health. Great work, brother. Appreciate you.
Thanks so much.